Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's right, we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. In Deadpool and Wolverine, released in 2024, directed by Sean Levy, Deadpool is offered a place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe by the Time Variance Authority, but instead recruits a variant of Wolverine to save his universe from extinction. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of a pre-warning because I am not a Marvel fanatic. I do not read the comics. I've pretty much watched almost every Marvel movie prior to Endgame. Anything after that, honestly, I probably haven't watched. I don't really love Marvel all that much. I like superheroes, but sometimes Marvel is a little just too not dark enough for my kind of style, so I'm not a huge fanatic. So this is somebody that has watched Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, but not necessarily understands every single reference. So that is definitely going to affect my review, and maybe it is something I will have to come back to, because I haven't even seen any of the X-Men. So really, this is even my first exposure with Wolverine, which I'm sure makes it easier if you know the character a lot more than I do. So that's just my pre-warning, but otherwise, let's just get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? Okay, the plot of this movie, honestly, I feel drags it down. Okay, this movie, it feels, especially like it has a bigger budget, but it feels like the stakes are bigger, but I just felt it was too generic. The whole universe was at stake, and that was it. And maybe some people, I'm sure some enjoy the simplicity of that. I personally thought the first two movies also had a fairly simple plot, but I felt more emotional for those reasonings, for what they were going for, why they were doing what they were doing, why Deadpool was motivated to do what he was doing. I felt the motivation more. This time, it just didn't feel as connected. It didn't feel as good. I felt it was too focused on the Deadpool and Wolverine and not enough on making it a very interesting plot, which for someone like me who doesn't necessarily care about the Deadpool-Wolverine mashup, it makes it worse because I don't necessarily care about that mashup already, and then you add a plot that is just okay. So the movie is really being saved by the comedy and the action, not necessarily the plot. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? Now, it being the third Deadpool movie made it very attractive already. It can kind of ride off the first two. Personally, I don't necessarily know anything about or necessarily cared about Wolverine the character, so to a lot of people that was super important. That's what drew them in. Personally, it wasn't really a big deal. I kind of came for the movie for Deadpool, less for Wolverine. But it does, if you are a Marvel fanatic, then you're going to love this movie. You're going to go head over heels for this movie. I personally felt the movie was too much about Marvel, not enough about Deadpool, and that was less interesting for me. Third is theme. What message or truth is a movie trying to convey? Now, if there was a huge message, I didn't really see it. I could say there was maybe a family theme, and then maybe there was a message about your past not defining you, and that at any moment you can be better than your past, but honestly, it's kind of a stretch. If there's a big message, I think I just missed it. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversations? Now, this is something that Deadpool is really good at. What these movies are great at is Ryan Reynolds is just made for that role, and his dialogue is always good. It's always witty. It's funny. That fourth wall breaking is always super good. So the dialogue in this movie is very good. I would say better than most, just because it feels really smooth. Just the improv that is done is so well done. It's just something that Deadpool does really well. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? Now, the acting in this movie, right, like Ryan Reynolds is perfect fit for Deadpool, and Hugh Jackman, I'm told, is a great fit for Wolverine. I think he does a good job. I don't know if I necessarily know exactly who Wolverine's supposed to be, but I would say Hugh Jackman had one of the only scenes that actually required emotion, strong emotion, and I think he did a really good job. Obviously, he's been doing it for a really long time. So those two together, it was just some really good acting, but I wouldn't say it was a stretch of that, acting talent. They did a good job. 6 is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? The cinematography in these movies is actually really well done. Something that I love about Deadpool movies across the board is they always have really cool slow motion sequences. All the action sequences are always done really well in a nice fluid way, and that didn't change with this movie. Those were done so well. And this movie actually had a lot more of a background theme going on that was also really well done. Lots of bright colors, lots of cool outfits, lots of things going on, lots of awesome designs that I thought were really cool. There's a lot of good shots, a lot of interesting shots. I love the costumes that the two main superheroes had. So, I mean, honestly, the cinematography in this movie is really well done. Probably better than what you would expect out of a superhero movie. Seventh is editing. This is all about the pace of the movie. Now, the movie is 2 hours and 7 minutes long. It's honestly, I would say, an ideal length. It was the length it needed to be. It wasn't too long, it wasn't too short. It wraps up when it needs to wrap up. Every section is exactly how long you really need it to be. And I never felt one section dragged on, or there's a section I felt, man, they should have just done a lot more of that. It was really well put together, probably because they have a very experienced director and actors. They know how long they need things to be. Their improv is good. So I felt the editing, the length of this movie was really well done. Eighth is soundtrack. Now, the soundtrack of the Deadpool movies is honestly always really good. Now, there's nothing crazy about it. It isn't going to stick in your memory forever, but they choose good songs for the situations better than most movies where the music is just kind of forgettable. In this movie, it plays a part where you actually get excited during action sequences because of a certain song that is playing. Ninth is directing. Now, personally, this is kind of a capture of the last 8 sections. This is what the director is in charge of. That's what they need to be the ones to give the okay and put all of this together to make a really good movie. Now, the director, Sean Levy, he's super experienced. He's done 16 movies up to this one, being Address Unknown, Just in Time, Big Fat Liar, Just Married, Cheaper by the Dozen, The Pink Panther, Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, Date Night, Real Steel, The Internship, This Is Where I Leave You, Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, Free Guy, The Atom Project, and then finally Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, this guy has done a ton of movies. He's done a ton of really good movies. I've seen a lot of those movies that he's directed. He obviously has made several recently with Ryan Reynolds. He seems to like him a lot. He's done a movie with Hugh Jackman, and it shows here. The experience shows. The chemistry between the three of them shows. They do a really good job. They craft a good movie. There's not a lot to hate about this movie. The only thing I disliked was just because I couldn't understand all the references, so that was somewhat boring to me, but I felt they paid a lot of attention to Marvel and a lot of the references to Marvel. They made a lot of jokes about Marvel, so I feel the director was really in tune with what audiences wanted if you were a Marvel fan, and I feel they delivered a really good project for those that were interested. This movie it doesn't hit for me quite as much because it is a Marvel movie, but I still say the directing is done really well. 10th is time. Will it stand the test of time? It will stand the test of time as a good movie. I don't think that will ever change. Personally, it won't stay on my radar. I don't know if I'll watch it again. I would probably prefer one of the other Deadpools before this movie, but I feel if you're a Marvel fanatic, this will be one of your top movies. But again, being in that Marvel franchise, I feel like there's a lot of movies that are done really well, and it's just going to hide in there. So it will stand the test of time, but I don't think it's going to stand out. Now for the review section. Rotten Tomatoes critics give it a 78%. The audience gives it a 96%, and IMDb gives it an 81%. Personally, I think these are kind of all on the money. I mean, the audience gives it a 96% because I do feel if this movie was what you were looking for, if you're a huge Marvel fan and you wanted that Deadpool and Wolverine chemistry, you got it. That's exactly what you wanted. But I can agree with the critics and IMDb that as a standalone movie, forgetting the fact that you have to really love Marvel, it's just okay. It's a good movie. I mean, it's not bad, it's not great. It's good. It has good aspects and bad aspects. I think the ratings are actually really well spread out. Alright, now for the ranking section. For 2024 on the entertainment side, I'm going to put it second below Fall Guy and just above Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I feel like it's very easy to put it above Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It's a much more entertaining movie, a better watch, I would say. Honestly, it's not even really a debate. That's a very easy decision for me. Now, it was hard for me between Deadpool and Wolverine and The Fall Guy. I would just say what hurts Deadpool and Wolverine is the fact that I would pick up the previous Deadpools before this one. And I feel that hurts it because I'm not going to want to pick up this movie and watch it. It's not going to be as high on my entertainment list as The Fall Guy, which is a little bit more of a unique movie. I do think I would prefer to watch The Fall Guy over Deadpool and Wolverine, just because Deadpool and Wolverine is so Marvel heavy. I'm not a huge Marvel fan. There are parts of this movie that were unentertaining to me just because I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know the cameos. So that makes it a little hard for me. I can understand if you knew all those, it would make the movie a better experience. I just didn't. For cinematography, I'm actually going to put it second, again, below Civil War and above The Fall Guy. I will say all the cameo aspects and the world that is there is really deep, and I feel that cinematically that is very well done. It has a lot of interesting parts to the world that The Fall Guy doesn't. The Fall Guy is really just about the regular world, just the world that we live in, and it doesn't really do as much of an interesting spin as Deadpool and Wolverine. And Civil War is obviously just more of a deeper movie. I feel it represents film better because I felt a lot more emotions in Civil War. It was a deeper watch more than Deadpool and Wolverine, and I just feel that it represents film better by the way it was able to grasp those feelings. For the decade of the 2020s, it's the exact same list on both sides. I just haven't watched and reviewed any movies outside of 2024. For all time, on the entertainment side, it's going to be fourth, just below Fall Guy for the same reasons, and above No Country for Old Men. It's just an easier watch than No Country for Old Men. Again, kind of like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It's not really hard to put it above No Country for Old Men. It's much more entertaining. It's a lot easier to pick up. I will definitely watch that movie before I watch No Country for Old Men. And for the cinematography side, I have it fifth, just below The Mist and above The Fall Guy. Having it below The Mist, I just feel The Mist again did a better job of really pulling out those feelings. Deadpool and Wolverine is an entertaining watch, but cinematically, all that's really good about it is just how deep and interesting all these characters and the world is, but The Mist really pulls you into those feelings. Deadpool and Wolverine just doesn't. That's all I've got for Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm sorry if it's not as high as you want it to be. I'm just not a huge Marvel fan, so it's just not going to climb those ranks for me like other movies will. So please let me know, comment what you thought about the movie and what movie you want me to watch next. Otherwise, I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.